there, welcome back to Margaret Lewin Quilting. I want to share with you today a quilt that I made quite a long time ago. This is made with Hoffman Fabrics Hexagons, and then this is also Hoffman's backgrounds. I'll put a link below to the quilt instructions when I made it. It has all the dimensions and all the cutting and shows you exactly how I went about putting it together. But now I am going to quilt it, and I've already quilted I think 2 or 3 rows, but I thought I'd walk you through what it takes to get this thing all quilted and put together. So the first thing I did was I got it on the long arm, and then you can see there's a thread here. This thread is just a basting stitch. Because I'm quilting it fairly heavily, fairly densely, I want the quilt to really stay in place. So I've gone ahead and I've basted it. I've loaded it on the machine, and I'm going to start by showing you the background and how I'm going to put it together. The first thing I'm going to do is show you how I stitched out the background. Then once I stitch out the background, then I'm going to fill in the hexagons with a design. This quilt's going to a man, so I didn't want it real flowery. I didn't want it real frilly. But then again, I really wanted these hexagons to stand out, and I think I accomplished that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around, and I'm going to let you see my computer screen, and then I'm going to actually draw out the quilt, and then get it all started to be put together so that I can turn the machine on and start quilting it. So hang on just a second. These up here on the screen right now are the already quilted pieces. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of it, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to delete these outlines because I no longer need these for the hexagons. I'm going to start by doing the background first. Then after I've done the background, then I will come back and I will do the hexagons. So in the meantime, I'm just going to put those out of the way, make sure they're toggled and sewn. And the next thing that I'm going to do, you'll notice up in the upper left hand corner, you're going to see across the toolbar at the top, I'm going to do some things. So see right here, I have clicked that. Hopefully you can see it, and what that's going to do is give me the boundaries that I'm doing. You can see down in the corner it says click boundary. So the very first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to establish my boundaries, and how I do that is I simply take my pointer and I outline the block that I'm going to be quilting. This one's a fairly easy one because number one, it's just straight lines, and number two, it's really pretty open, so it's not a whole lot of it's not real difficult to do out the boundaries. So that's what I do very first. Then after I get the boundaries drawn, I'll show you what I'm going to do to put the design in and get it all put together. So there's my boundary. You can see it's not perfectly square. That happens quite a bit. They never do seem to be perfectly square. And I'm going to take that design. Whoops, that's not the one I want. I want this one right here. I'm going to take this design and I'm going to move it up. All right. And now I'm going to make adjustments to it. My first adjustment is up here at the top, and I'm just going to take and I'm going to scooch that down a little bit. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 points out of the 8. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 points. Out of those 8 points, only 4 of them really matter to me. This one, this one, this one, and this one. The reason why these other ones don't matter to me as much is because they are going to be hidden underneath one of the hexagons. They're going to actually be taken right away. So if I scroll this in really close, I can see that I'm pretty nice and close to that line. The next one that I want to get close to is this one over here on the side, and I'm going to get just as close as I can to that one. Now you can see on this bottom one I'm too far out, so I'm going to back it in. And I'm going to pull that one up and make sure, yep, I'm a hair's width away. And then I need to come over to this one and I need to guide that one into place. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is just make sure that these corner pieces aren't too wonky. So I'm going to change the way that I'm making the adjustments, and I'm going to go to the gray handles. What the gray handles do is they allow me to really distort the design so that it matches within. So I did that. Now I'm going to change it back because I need to pull this side out a little bit. I need to pull this side out a little bit. And I need to take this one down a little bit. Okay? So now I've got my 4 points exactly where I want them. The next thing is I need to be able to tell the machine not to stitch where the hexagons are, because I just don't want it stitching there. I've got this design, or I'll show you it up here. This is the design that's going inside the hexagons. So I really don't want it stitching where the hexagons are. So I'm going to go back to my controls up here, and I'm going to tell it that I want to trim. So what I want to do is I want to trim the outside of where I'm drawing or clicking, or however you want to say it. So I'm going to tell it that, and I'm going to highlight it. Now it's telling me to trim the points. So now you're going to be able to see exactly how I go about trimming this block out so that the machine does not stitch where that block is. So it's again just a matter of taking the head of my long arm, and there's a laser light on it, and then just pointing where I want it to stop. So I'm going to start outside of the block. You can see where the crosshairs are, and I'm going to come over, and now you can see I'm drawing outside of the boundaries, but that's okay because I don't want it inside of the boundaries. I want everything on the outside, and I want it to disappear. So now see where this design is? It's not going to stitch there. So I'm going to do this again with another one. Grab my scissors again, and I'm going to come down, and I'm going to do my next one. And I am just tracing right around that block again. And that is telling the machine, get rid of that design. She doesn't want it stitched there. So I'm going to keep doing that for all. Whoops, that was the wrong. Whoops, stop. I don't want to do that. I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do that on all of the blocks that are here. And then I'll turn the camera for the last one and show you exactly what it is that I'm doing on the quilt. But let's hang on till I get to the very last one. And then I can show you pretty easily how I do it. And I want to be consistent throughout the entire quilt of exactly where I'm tagging it. See, now there goes the big hexagon. Now I've got 2 more half ones to do, and then I will come show you on the last one what I have to do. I've selected the trim point. This is the hexagon I'm going to trim. So this is the end of my block right here. I'm going to come down and I'm going to start here. And I'm just going to tell it that that's my point 1, my point 2. And I'm just drawing all the way around it, stating that I don't want you to sew there. That's an area that I want you to forget about when it comes time to sewing. Now, when it's a very small block, you have to do a whole lot more points. I'm going to move the camera for you. But this, like I said, is a pretty straight, simple block, and I don't have to do a lot of points on it. So my next thing is I'm going to tell it to go ahead and quilt this block. And you'll see that it's going to tie off whenever it comes to a hexagon, and it won't stitch there. See there, it's doing a tie off, and that's really not something that you'll notice. It's going to tie in again, and then what I will do is once the quilt's all done, I'll go back and trim all of those tie-offs so that they don't show up. So here we go. I'm going to quilt it up, and I will actually adjust the camera so that I will actually keep it going, and I won't speed it up too fast so that people can see it working, because people have said to me they really like to watch it do its thing. So there you go. So this is what it looks like quilted. I'm going to try to pan it here a little bit so that maybe you can see quilt. So there it is. There's the first step of the quilting done. Okay, so the next step is I had to roll the quilt back this way a little bit, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of these sewn. So I'm going to change threads and do a couple of different things, then I'll come back and show you exactly how I'm going to make this part come together. So the first thing I'm going to do is start getting my boundaries drawn again. So I'm going to move the screen just so that you can see where I am. I'll move these down too so that you can see these. These are the patterns that I'm going to be sewing in there. In this crosshair right here, that's exactly where the head of my long arm is. So I'm going to draw a boundary. Whoops, gotta keep going, sorry. I'm going to draw a boundary first all the way around the hexagons or half hexagons so that I know exactly where to place them. And I'm just going to do that for all of the hexagons that are currently quilted around. And just going slowly and carefully around so that I get the correct edge where I want that pattern to stop stitching. That's what I do. So once I get that all done and I go placing my patterns in, I'll come on back and show you how I go about placing the patterns inside of these boundaries where I want them. And you can see the next step. You can see I have drawn the outlines for all of my hexagons or half hexagons. I'm gonna adjust it, and I'm gonna zoom it in so that I can really see the placement of how everything's gonna be placed. Make sure that I'm within the boundaries and just do any minor adjustments that need to be done before I tell it to go ahead and stitch. And there's always a little bit of tweaking here and there that you gotta do, which is no big deal. It's mostly just being patient, or a little bit patient, because I'm not the most patient person. I try hard. And just fiddling around a little bit. Alright, that's better. And I just do that through all of them, and then I can start telling it to stitch. And I'll come back and show you once it starts stitching so that you can see the different color of thread that I'm using. So I'll be back in just a minute. And this, let's see if I can show it to you, is how the row looks once it's been quilted. I'll try to flip the camera so that you can see a little bit more of it. So that's what it looks like. If you would like to see the entire quilt done, go out and check my Instagram account, because once I finish the quilt, I will be showing pictures of the front and of the back. So pop on over to Miss Marker's Quilts on my Instagram page, and I'll leave a link to it below. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching this little tutorial. I'll be back again with another tutorial. See you then. Thanks. Bye-bye.